Yakima Water Solutions, your locally owned water and drainage system company, including water softeners, filtration, reverse osmosis, backflow testing, and more.
Hey everyone, this is Cindy with Easy Productions. Welcome to my channel. So here is another Rattlesnake Ridge update. I'm on my way over there right now to add a couple of pictures. But stay tuned for a video of Bill, my geologist. He goes over the PNSN info data. He goes over the colors that I've been seeing up there, the different colors in the rocks. And he goes over seismic activity and what else? He talks about the Union Gap irrigation pipes, which you can find pictures at my website at www.easycproductions.com. I'll put the video details down below as well. Oh, he also talks about, you know, we've had ongoing conversations about the drilling rigs up there. So he does talk a bit about that. So stay tuned and please be sure to watch that. On other stuff, I will post another video. My house is going through many repairs, and we just found out another problem. And I just had another company rip me off. But I will post a video. I'll put together a video and post it hopefully after the holidays. All right, I think that's it. Merry Christmas, guys. Merry Christmas to all, and I hope you spend it well with friends, family, or at home, cuddled up, you know, reading a book, sipping some wine, having a beer. Okay, this is getting bad, right? All right, so Merry Christmas, guys. Stay tuned for Bill's videos and a few more images because this light is great and I can't pass up. All right, until next time.
Go over some of the interesting developments that have occurred over, I don't know, the last couple weeks or so, that Cindy has certainly alluded to in her pictures. Again, we always seem to open with the base map of the quarry back in a time when things were a lot more stable, apparently. Now, what I'm going to show you may or may not be related to any potential catastrophic slides or anything like that, but some of them are really neat geologic features. Others may indeed, in fact, be related to this potential failure in the future, now and in the future. Again, we see the base map, and the first thing I want to go to, let's see. Yes, we'll just start with this. One of Cindy's pictures, I think this was a few days ago. I think one of the more interesting developments that we're starting to see here, for the first time, in fact, we do, and I think Cindy pointed this out, we see the darker colors more towards the left side of the screen, the white towards the right side of the screen. Yes, this is indeed a separate formation than the white, a separate event, if you will, than the white lava flows that occurred at the time. Despite the fact that the contact here seems more vertical than what you would imagine being horizontal, it is indeed horizontal, but this particular layer where this separation is, this particular layer to the left here that I'm pointing out, just occurred at a later time and just cut through this, or there was already a channel for it to go through. But as it indeed does appear by all signs to be a separate formation. And the reason I say that, because we, for the first time, can see the separation as I'm going along it here, the separation of this darker formation right above the top here, the darker formation from the white stuff that's behind it, which is underneath of this. I'm going to go through this. This is more of the white stuff that you're seeing here. That's here. The dark stuff that you're seeing here is just running along this line. Yes, it's a very thin veneer, if you will. But what I find interesting is, in addition to the major headscarp that we have seen here, and we've seen it for the better part of a year now, we're starting to see a headscarp forming here, meaning that it does appear that this formation, the top, and in fact this entire section all the way down to the southwest corner, has indeed begun to detach, which I find interesting, because I think it will probably be the first sections to show any kind of major failure or anything that would slide, that has some kind of meat to it, if you will. I think, yes, this is another picture, pretty much the same thing, a nice close-up view, but you can, yes, see again the separation of this formation from the stuff below it. And I think this line has kind of been demarcating it the whole time. You can see the difference here, where it's kind of curved in a way, not necessarily flat line, which you would expect if everything, we've made the claims that everything is horizontal here, which in fact it is, but in terms of lava flows, it's not necessarily going to deposit in the same manner that, say, a sedimentary bedrock formation would normally look. If you think of Grand Canyon, places like that, where you typically see very clear-cut horizontal layers, one on top of the other. Volcanic flows are not going to necessarily do that. An interesting part of this, I could see Cindy's eye caught this. I think this is really neat. But this is part of that upper formation that I'm claiming is separated. But in the sense of that lava flow, as that lava flow was occurring, it grabbed a little hunk of that white adjacent formation and pulled it down with it. And this is just part of that, a neat geologic feature that has occurred here. But that's a neat little catch by Cindy there. It's neat, and is very typical. There's nothing really unique about it. It occurs in a lot of circumstances. Again, we see that I think I'd always been kind of wondering, why the crack up here, and we saw this develop, early January, I think. Is it almost a hairline, and now it's obviously starting to show its face, so to speak. We're still seeing heave in more of a westerly direction, but I'm starting looking at it now and taking in the entire quarry. It does appear that the run out direction in this case is probably more in a southwest direction. I still think that there is a southerly movement, but a little more to the west of now, based on that, the slumping that we're seeing. And we've seen pictures, quite a few pictures of that, in terms of, let me see if I can find it here. See if we can find something here with, yep, we'll bypass that for now. We'll probably just show that at another time. But another interesting part of this is the vegetation that's growing here. And you can see these are part of being a good scientist and a good geologist and a good field geologist, is to be a good detective. And I think the new growth here, compared to the kind of dormant growth around here, the new growth here is demonstrating fracture planes within that white formation, this stuff over here towards the top of what I'm circling here. But a neat clue nevertheless, as we go forward, this being, I think, an older fracture that developed quite a long time ago. So anyway, moving on, let's go to some of the news items that we have dealt with here in recent times. One of them I wanted to allude to a little bit, which I think is interesting, and I think it's better. The Pacific Northwest Seismic Network is I think Cindy's reported, is discontinuing their monitoring, and I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, but based on the condition of the equipment and quite frankly the placement of the equipment, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I do like what the University of Oregon is doing here. As you can see here, they're basically replacing that with nodal seismographs, which I think, for lack of a better word, are a little more disposable, if you will. But as you can see, they have a great data set laid out here, and pretty much on the slide. I think, which is good. Pacific Northwest Seismic Network had a pretty decent array here, but this is far better, and I do think we can see from the data that they've been putting out already, it almost immediately jives almost exactly. As you can see, the earthquakes that they're pointing out, every station shows the same. It shows a pattern, and I think going forward this is going to be a good thing. I just wanted to clear that up, being that we're not abandoning monitoring altogether. We're just changing it up a little bit. So now, probably the difficult aspect of this is, will we see this data? I don't know. This is a privately held university. They don't have to necessarily show us this data. My hope would be that in the future that they will release a paper that we can all have access to and read about what's going on. I probably won't report it with the frequency that the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network did, but nevertheless, I think we're getting good data here, and hopefully we'll get to see some of it before too long. So, just an interesting development. I just want to clear that up, that they weren't actually abandoning the monitoring. And that's a good thing. This was interesting. It was reported crews to start drilling into Rattlesnake Ridge to add more equipment. That seems questionable at this point. As Cindy has taken a picture, I can see, just based on looking at this operation to me looks, whether it's equipment, there could be, but this looks very exploratory to me, meaning mining resources to the extent of those resources. This is just from an eyeball shot. This looks like a rig type, a CME 85, which is very much built to core rock at a very fast rate. This is your water for coring. It does appear they might be using mud in this case, which is probably a good thing because they're probably drilling a great distance uncased, just with the core barrel itself, and you're going to have to figure out a way to keep the rock back as you're going down. To what depth they're going, I have no idea, but this very much looks like a very standard drilling operation to core rock. So I read comments in the past that the public should be privy to this. I would wholeheartedly agree, but I'm certainly biased. It would be nice to see what they're coring out of this. Whether or not we'll see it or not, I have no idea. But generally speaking, based on this picture and the other pictures I've seen, this looks pretty much exploratory at this point. Again, I guess I hope we'll see it, but we'll come to find out. Cindy had reported that there was a great deal of rain, and that was kind of the 2 inches were the type of rain that we were kind of looking for to have an effect. Now, it may be delayed. We'll see what happens, but I think this is probably her most recent picture, and it does seem to have a moderate effect already. I think the slumping is starting to accelerate some. We'll see what happens. The more rain, the more that will accelerate, obviously. And the other factor that we have discussed in the past is the seismic activity, which I have something here. Yes, go to the seismic update, and this basically the yellow ones are within the 2 weeks. Again, this Pacific Northwest Seismic Network is available online, and we've seen, generally speaking, a general uptick in seismic activity along the West Coast, and these are all minor you know, ones, twos in that ballpark. We typically don't even acknowledge them that much when they're this small. But the cluster of these is, I wouldn't say mildly concerning to me, but I guess exciting in some ways, because this is a pretty good cluster over the last 2 weeks. I would think the way we're looking at this now, and the repeated pattern, we could have something here. We're going to need probably some other conditions to initiate something. Let me orient you to, yes, there's Yakima and Rattlesnake Ridge being somewhere around here. These ones off to the east they're pretty common. I have no idea what's going on there, but these smalls, again, we can look at them. Yeah, they're just ones. You know, nothing earth-shattering here. In fact, you probably wouldn't even feel it, but we are having a pretty significant uptick in seismic activity. Now, we don't have, in Rattlesnake Ridge, we don't have necessarily active faults. What we have are zones of thrust, basically. They're not your typical subduction zones, which are going out pretty much to the west. But we will have reactions to the subduction zone out here to the west, more towards the east. As that basically pushes more towards the west, that is the kind of reaction that we're probably going to get in Rattlesnake Ridge, is more thrusting on top of one layer, thrusting on top of another. And there are, I don't know the validity of that right now, but there are map thrust faults just south of Rattlesnake Ridge. So we could see, and that's kind of something we don't want. We don't want pushing against the ridge. Pushing against the ridge is gonna break that up more. It's gonna buckle things more than we've already seen. And I think there have been extensive pictures of inside the quarry of the buckling that's occurring as the bulldozing seems to continue slightly to the west. But I think with the separation of the separation of the formation at the top, we're probably going to get more of a southwesterly kind of movement with debris. And as we continue to see, we can continue to see talus and in quite details. Let me see. I think there was one more thing I wanted to go over, which was the I found interesting was the irrigation pipe that underneath Rattlesnake Ridge that has been, if I can find it here, that has been extremely damaged probably by the weight of the talus that continues to fall on there. I don't see the picture readily available, but nevertheless, I'm sure Cindy can post that picture at a separate time or post it after this video. It's pretty readily available if you just look at it. And so I was hoping to see if I could find it here, but I'm afraid not. Oh, there we go. There we go. That's fairly recent. As you can see, it's almost egg-shaped at the moment. This baby's really taken a beating, and I'm quite surprised that it has held up this long. But this is, I think, within the last couple of weeks, and that is significant damage. This thing is going to collapse. There's no question about it. But I'm pretty surprised that it's held up to this point, and it doesn't appear that they're actually using it at this point, because we can see the concrete fall out here, and I wouldn't advise them to use it, but who am I? Anywho, that is kind of where we're at right now. Again, I just wanted to clarify some of the things that were happening going forward. We always thank you again for watching, and anything else breaks, we will bring it to you. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Okay, so the sun is covered now. I arrive and it's covered. Okay. Show a little bit of that. I love how Bill talked about that. And, I mean, look at this up above. I hope you can see the colors. And the light is good enough. You know? And people have been asking for sort of a time compiled video over time from January to now. It's going to be a while till I get to that. Here, how about I make it a goal to do that for January? So I believe I started recording January 6th. That's what I'll do. I just have a lot going on with the house, and I'm still living out of boxes, guys. So you'll have to wait for that. Okay. Thanks, guys, and this is Cindy with Easy Sea Productions. Until next time.